Now I'll turn to member questions, and I recognize myself for 5 minutes for questioning. Sarbanes-Oxley and Dodd-Frank have significantly impacted public corporations' annual proxy statements by increasing their regulatory requirements for disclosure, words and a discussion about executive compensation, and shareholder access. Together, these two laws have driven up costs, increased the length and complexity of proxy statements, and expanded the disclosure and oversight process, and fundamentally changed much of the shareholder access to the proxy system. Likewise, the now rescinded but 2003 safe harbor for investment managers using a proxy advisor to be off the hook for the responsibility of voting by delegating that authority to an advisor, that's been withdrawn, but it, on top of these other changes, added to exactly this costly process. And to the comptroller's points, this isn't about reining in executive compensation, capital allocation, dividend policy, 10b-5 funds. That's all, I think, absolutely in the realm of what should be available for proxy access. It's where it goes beyond that to non-material business operations issues. And I put up my static display here in compliance with House rules to just show the change in the proxy process since I've been involved in corporate finance, now 40 years. I picked 4 public companies that have been consistently part of the S&P 500 since 1980, my first full year in the financial business, IBM, Procter & Gamble, 3M, and Merck. And the proxy in 1980 for IBM was 26 pages, Procter & Gamble 12. In 2020, IBM's proxy was 83 pages and Procter & Gamble's was 85 pages. Mr. Mueller, let me start with you. As you see these changes, and it outlines all the reasons why, both statutory and regulatory, would you say that the length of proxy statements has, what would you say the primary driver for that length in the proxy statements over the past 45 years? What's the top contributor, you think?
Sure, Chairman Hill. Certainly 3 things. Certainly the regulations that you mentioned, but I think there's 2 other factors going on. One is good and one is bad. I mean, the good news here is that companies now treat their proxy statement as a communication document, not just a compliance document. Shareholder democracy is alive and well in America, and the proxy statement helps fulfill that purpose. But the second cause is not so good, and again, it's the subject of this hearing, which are shareholder proposals and proxy advisory firms. Proxy advisory firms have certain criteria they look for when they're making their voting recommendations, and they will only look at an SEC filed document. And so preparing a proxy has now become an ISS and a Glass-Lewis check-the-box compliance process, adding to the length. There's also the shareholder proposal process itself. Whether or not a company receives a shareholder proposal, companies are acutely aware of what other proposals are being submitted to other companies. And so many companies try to avoid that target by proactively saying, look what we're doing on this issue, look what we're doing on that issue.
Thank you. I've always been concerned that sometimes more information is too much information and it's confusing. I don't know that it's in plain English. I really admire the issue of trying to expose clarity in management compensation, for example. I think we want comp committees that are, as Warren Buffett says, filled with saber-toothed tigers, not, pussycats. But on the other hand, I'm not sure the average investor could remotely figure out the pages and pages and pages of comp comparisons in a proxy. And so my advice to the commission would be to make that a lot simpler. Ms. Keel, thank you for representing Vanderbilt University today ably. Glad your mic is working. Talk to me about the economic relevance issue around Legal Bulletin 14M. Do you think that change will be better to allow companies to exclude proposals that really don't have an economic relevance to the to the corporation's business operations?
Sure, thank you. I think it's definitely a step in the right direction, but I don't think we can kind of overstate that it's going to be the kind of savior to the process. So before 14L, I counted just about 20 examples of when the economic relevance exclusion was actually relied upon. And I think it goes back to my written remarks about the kind of complexity of actually applying these standards. So if we look at this year's success rate with this economic relevance standard, which for background, it allows you to exclude a proposal if it relates to 5% or less of a company's operations.
Thank you, ma'am.